So it's official. It looks like Xbox Games Pass just hit 10 million subscribers. And honestly, this is some pretty big news considering we're still at a stage at gaming where a lot of people are still playing games on traditional hardware like PC hardware or game console hardware. So to see Xbox Games Pass actually hit 10 million subscribers is actually a pretty big deal. And this pretty much proves the future is going to be some type of game streaming. It may not be anytime soon where everybody's game streaming, but I do believe sometime in the near future we will all eventually be playing all our brand new hot titles through game streaming. And honestly, this makes a whole bunch of sense for a lot of different reasons. One, if you take a look at what these companies are doing, like the Xbox Games Pass, these are pretty cheap services. The Xbox Games Pass service is around $10 a month, and what you're paying for is you're paying for a pretty good deal. You can pretty much play all the Xbox games that you want on this service. And to make this service a little bit more enticing for a lot of people out there is the fact that this service alone does actually allow you to play all the first-party Microsoft titles on day one if you have Games Pass, which is actually pretty nice. And then outside of that, you can play Xbox One games. You can also play Xbox 360 game. I think there's even some original Xbox games. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But either way, this is a really great service. So I can see why so many people would want to actually buy this thing. It's kind of like if you have an Xbox now, there's almost no reason not to actually buy Xbox Games Pass. It's really like almost a no-brainer. For that $10 a month, you get access to as many games as you want. Sure, not all new releases come to this thing right away, but just the fact that they have so many good games on this, it's almost like, why wouldn't you buy this? It's almost honestly to a point to where you don't even really need to buy games when they come out brand new for $60 a piece, unless you really want that hot brand new title, because like I said again, there's so many titles on Xbox Games Pass. It's kind of like, why wouldn't you actually go ahead and just buy Xbox Game Pass? And you can honestly be content with a Games Pass because it's such an amazing service. And the reason I say game streaming is going to be the future is because, first of all, if you look at these different gaming companies, it really makes sense from a business standpoint that a lot of these companies would want you to have a reoccurring payment. And since if they have a lot of subscribers, that's not giving them a one-time payment but a reoccurring payment like Xbox Games Pass, overall it makes more sense from a profit standpoint. And I can see why a lot of these companies would want to move away from traditional gaming and have something like online streaming when it comes to the game portion, because then you're going to be forced to pay that $10 a month each and every month. And if they do like 10 million subscribers times $10 a month, you know you're talking about some pretty big massive profit when it actually comes to gaming. So it does make sense. And then for the consumer does get a lot out of this, just because now you have a lot of games at your disposal, and just the fact you don't have to buy games at $60 a piece, this almost pays for itself, because if you were to buy this the whole entire year, you actually almost had a better deal than buying games throughout the year for $60, $50, $40, whatever the case may be. So you're actually saving a lot more money in the long run by buying something like the Xbox Games Pass. And the nice thing about these services is the fact that you're getting a lot more games, and a lot of games at that. So there's probably going to be a lot of games on the Xbox Games Pass that you weren't really willing to buy in the first place, but if it's on Xbox Games Pass, you might as well give it a try, just because you're paying $10 for a lot of different games. So you can try just different games, and if you don't like them, you didn't really lose any money. So it is good for the consumer in that way. And honestly, it is pretty surprising that a lot of people are actually finding the value of something like Xbox Games Pass, because I really do think Xbox Games Pass is the future. Not just Xbox Games Pass, but things like xCloud, I do believe Microsoft is also working on, which is actually a dedicated streaming service for games. We still have Google Stadia, which is kind of in a mixed bag right now. And then we have one I think Amazon wants to start up, and some other companies want to start up. But overall, this is some pretty crazy news that Xbox Games Pass just hit 10 million subscribers. So you can see a lot of people who own Xboxes really do find the value of Xbox Games Pass. And this is not just for Xbox players, because you do have to remember that there is something on the PC called Xbox Games Pass as well. So basically you can get Xbox Games Pass on your PC or on your Xbox you're choosing, and it's actually pretty nice to actually get this service, and it's almost, like I said again, a no-brainer. Whether you're on PC or whether you're on console, you might as well take the Xbox Games Pass. It's a really good deal in gaming, and it's probably one of the best deals in gaming, to be 100% honest. It's almost like a must-buy now. So cheap, worth the money. You'll get a lot of value out of your subscription. It's like amazing deal. What else can I say? Next up, we have some pretty big news about a brand new next generation game. We already got confirmation of a brand new next gen game for the Xbox Series X and the upcoming PlayStation 5. And this brand new game is going to be an Assassin's Creed game. I know they make Assassin's Creed game very frequently, and this Assassin's Creed game is going to be called Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It arrives on Xbox Series X and PS5, and it's actually funny, this article right here, the way they worded it, it says Assassin's Creed Valhalla arrives this holiday, and that's actually still got me puzzled, because we still really don't know if these consoles are going to be delayed from everything that's going on in the world right now. We just really don't know when they're actually coming out, but this still claims apparently that the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are still coming holiday 2020, which is actually very interesting. But I guess that makes sense, because they were supposed to come out holiday 2020. We already know that Xbox Series X is coming out this winter, and then PS5 is supposed to be right around that time as well, so it makes sense. We'll have to wait and see. And here is the world premiere trailer. I don't know if I want to show this trailer, because there's been some stuff with some companies, so I'm not sure. You can probably watch this on your own. I'm probably not actually going to show that, just due to copyright claims and things like that. But it's probably going to be an amazing game if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, and it's probably going to look amazing on next generation hardware. Playing this thing close to like 4K, 60 frames per second, it's going to be amazing. One thing Ubisoft did actually confirm is this game is going to be backwards compatible. It's not going to be a game that's actually exclusive to the Xbox Series X or the PS5, if that makes sense. It's actually going to be a current gen game, so you can buy it on current gen hardware, or you can buy it on next gen hardware. Yours to choose, of course, so that is nice. Of course, a lot of these newer games like this probably won't look as good as they could on this hardware, just because the hardware is new. A lot of people are developing for this hardware for the first time, so they got to get used to all that new power, all that new architecture, and things like that. And on top of that, they do have to develop a lot of almost all these brand new games that are coming out very early in the Xbox Series X lifespan and the PS5 lifespan for last gen and current gen. It's just that these games couldn't look as good as they could, just because they have to make two versions, so they're not gonna be the most mind-blowing thing, which is kind of unfortunate. But I guess we'll have to wait until the later half of the life cycle of the brand new consoles, the Series X and PS5, to really get the most power out of these systems. But overall, this should look really good, and I'm actually not really excited for this game, since honestly I'm not really an Assassin's Creed fan, but just the fact they did announce a brand new next gen game gets me excited, because I don't think we have too many rumors and too many announcements of next generation games. And I guess it makes sense to actually release some information about some games coming to the next gen hardware, just because you guys know, with the epidemic going around in the world right now, there is going to be no E3 2020, and since there's going to be no E3 2020, of course, they can break the news pretty much whenever they want to, so it makes sense that they would want to just break it randomly and tell everybody about this brand new game coming out for the release of the Series X and the PS5, so that's actually nice, and it is actually a pretty well-known franchise and a pretty well-known game, so that's actually pretty nice. The next one on my list is actually going to be about the brand new game coming to Switch. I think we already got this announced. It is going to be a port of a game way back on the Xbox 360. The game I'm talking about is actually Burnout Paradise. Burnout Paradise is actually coming to the Nintendo Switch. You guys know there is already a remaster already out for that, I do believe, for the PS4 and the Xbox One. So basically, we're going to be getting that, but it's not going to be the same thing, of course, since the Nintendo Switch doesn't have as much power as something like the PS4 and Xbox One, so it is going to be a watered-down version of the current remaster, or the current game that we already have out for Burnout Paradise. I'm assuming it'll run pretty well. It'll look pretty good, and I think this is, I'm pretty sure, let me see here. Yes, I'm pretty sure, I want to say this is an EA game. Yes, this is an EA game, and I know EA just not really a big fan of the Nintendo Switch. I know something about last generation with the Wii U, Nintendo and EA had some kind of argument. I don't really know all too much about that. You can look that up and things like that. It kind of does suck. This is like one of the first few EA games that's coming to the Nintendo Switch outside of FIFA, I want to say, since they don't really put games on the Nintendo Switch all too often. And it does kind of suck. It is Burnout Paradise, because we've already seen this game a while. It is a good looking game, but nothing too crazy. And there is something really weird about this. Not really weird, but something that really sucks about Burnout Paradise Remastered. The one thing that really sucks about Burnout Paradise Remastered on Switch is the fact that this game alone is going to cost $50 freaking dollars, and that is a lot of money for a game that's a game that came out in like 2007, and a game that's already on current generation too. It just sucks that EA has a lot of backlog they could have used, or a lot of other games they could have put on the Nintendo Switch, but they decided to put Burnout Paradise. Some people out there actually have some guesses to why Burnout Paradise may have actually been a game that actually would have come to Switch, just because they didn't really want to put anything on Switch, but some investors were like, hey, you need something on Switch, so just throw out something. And they're like, well, we already have this game running on PS4 and Xbox One, so let's throw it out on the Nintendo Switch and see what happens. And let's mark this up to $50, which I think $50 for this game is just a little bit too much, considering how old this game is and considering you can get it on other platforms. And in general, if you were to buy this game used, this game's dirt cheap, so it just sucks. It's $50. At least it says right here it's $50 and it's not $60, because $60 would be absurd for this game. So at least EA understands that this game shouldn't be $60. They're like, look, we know it can't be $60, and we probably know a lot of people out there aren't going to buy this game for $60. They're only going to buy this for $50. So let's actually make it $50. Honestly, I think the sweet spot for this game alone, to be honest, if I'm clear, would be somewhere around $40. I know a lot of people would be happy if it was like a cash grab at like $20, or if it was a $20 game, but honestly, I know it's EA, and EA has done a lot of shady things when it comes to video games and video game practices. So of course they're going to want to pay. They're almost going to want to charge $60 for a game that's super dirt old and is just okay, which does kind of suck. At least it looks like they are going to be giving you the 8 DLCs that comes with this game to make this deal a little bit sweeter for everyone out there. And I'm actually glad that they're actually at least including the DLCs with this. It's almost like a no-brainer. If you're going to have a game like this and it has DLC, a lot of times, especially with like ports or remasters, you might as well just give out all the DLCs. There's no reason not. But honestly, I'm not too excited for this game, and I'm not too happy about this. I actually played this game already anyway, Burnout Paradise. I am actually a pretty big fan of the Burnout series, but I'm more so a fan of the older Burnouts, like the old Burnouts from like PS2 and the early 360 days. I had such a fun with that. And then the Burnout Paradise on the Burnout Paradise collection on the PSP. The Burnout Paradise collection on PSP was flat out amazing. It was pretty much a compilation. It was one game, but it pretty much took all the assets from Burnout 1, 2, and 3, and I think Takedown as well. I think 3 might be Takedown, but either way, I played that game a lot on the PSP. It was like literally my favorite PSP game. Honestly, if it was like a collection of the older games like that one on the PSP, just cleaned up with better graphics, I would maybe be interested. But Burnout Paradise is a game like, it's kind of weird, because Burnout Paradise is kind of a game that's kind of an open world racing game. If you ever played any type of open world racing games, maybe for instance like some of the Need for Speeds, like the one that comes to mind for me is going to be Need for Speed Most Wanted. I remember playing Need for Speed Most Wanted, and it was an open world-esque game. Actually, speaking of open world racing games that have like a hub, you drive around the city and then you activate missions or do these little tasks. Actually, I really did love Need for Speed Most Wanted. Need for Speed Most Wanted was definitely one of my favorite open world style racing games, probably of all time. I put so many hours into that game. I love the mechanics. I love the fact the cops chased you in that game. Overall, I really love that game a lot, and that game was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's too bad that this game's coming to Switch, but I guess I can't complain. The more the merrier, and it's always nice to see more games on the Switch, and there's a market for this game. There's always a market for every single game out there, whether I don't really care about it or you don't really care about it, somebody's probably going to want to buy this remaster for $50. I would probably take this remaster, honestly, if it was just a little bit cheaper, maybe $20, $30. Once it drops in price and things like that, I'll probably take it. But the problem is with the Nintendo Switch, even when we're talking about old game ports or old remasters and things like that, it kind of sucks that a game like this, Burnout Paradise, probably won't drop in price anytime soon just because it is the Switch, and for some reason even third-party games that are extremely old games on the platform just seem not to drop in price, even if they're third party, which is weird because they're not Nintendo branded, and they're games that usually came out on like last gen hardware or even current gen hardware that are just super old. So most likely this will probably stay around $50 for a very long time, which is absolutely insane because I usually like checking prices of other games on the Nintendo Switch that are like old ports like Skyrim, Doom 2016, Diablo, and things like that. And those games always seem to hover around $40, $50 at tops, which is absolutely insane for games that are old. I guess it's just the Switch and Nintendo in general. Nintendo games just always seem to hold their value, whether they're first-party games or whether they're third-party games, which is kind of sucks. And then the last one for today's video is actually going to be about brand new USB 4. It looks like we're officially getting some more updates on USB 4, of course. It says right here, USB 4 will fully support DisplayPort 2, including 8K HDR monitors, and that's actually fantastic. I know a lot of people probably don't own anywhere near 8K displays right now because 8K is pretty expensive and they don't really have too many 8K displays out there, and there's not too much 8K content to begin with. But just the fact that USB 4 will support DisplayPort 2 and 8K HDR monitors is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it looks like right now the only one that we have is USB 3.0. It looks like USB 4.0 is not even out there, of course. Anytime we get a new port, it's always good. And it's always nice that it always brings all these different new speeds and enhancements and things like that. It said it'll be able to support things that are super crispy and super nice. Like, for instance, it'll be able to support 8K at 60 hertz HDR, which is nice. It even says it'll even support 16K. I don't know if I actually believe that. I don't even know who has 16K, but apparently it does support 16K at 60 hertz, which is actually interesting. And then it says it'll also support 40 gigs. 40 gig, something about 40 gigs, and DisplayPort, DisplayPort 2.0 supports 80 gig speeds, which is actually insane. Overall, it's just a better USB port. That's all I can say, and that is going to be the future, of course, USB 4, once more people get things like, USB, that must be the speeds of, like, drives and things like that, which is actually insane. It just came to me in my head, basically, and I think that's actually pretty insane for, like USB thumb drives and USB hard drives and SSDs and things like that, that USB 4 will be able to support up to 80 gigs. 80 gigs is insane. So if you have like multiple 4K videos to drop on like a drive or something, you should be able to drop them in like 1 second, which is actually insane. I never thought I would see the day where like super big files, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 gig files would be able to be dropped in like a near second. Of course, to get those speeds, you'll probably have to find a drive that'll support those speeds. You'll probably have to pay up once USB 4 actually comes out and it's actually fully usable and things like that. You'll have to pay up for those speeds. There's always going to be a premium for things like that. But this is actually some pretty good news that we are getting some more support for USB 4, which is actually pretty interesting, and that's actually some good news. Anytime we get advancements in technology and it makes our life easier and better and things like that is always good news. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for this episode. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News signing out.